Namaste, and welcome to our continuing series, Interviews with Disciples and Devotees. And today we do part 2 with our beloved Rashmi. Namaste.
Namaste, namaste.
So you were telling me about Free Progress and about your life in Italy.
Yeah.
And your music, a lot about your music, which was very wonderful to hear.
Yeah.
What about the rest of your life in the ashram when you grew older? Did you
I started
work
from
in different
KG.
departments?
Sorry?
Did you work in
Yeah, I
certain
used to work.
departments?
But not after I finished, but during our formal education, we had every Wednesday we had the whole morning dedicated to one department.
Oh,
You choose a department where you want to work, be it in the carpentry, be it at the library, be it at any sector of ashram productive life. So I went to the reception because I already was good with languages and I had a faculty of communicating, and so I was at the reception in the ashram. So I was with Mota Kaka. You know Mota Kaka?
no.
Mota Kaka is Pranabda. You know Pranabda?
Yes.
Pranabda's uncle. He was, one of the, in the 40s, 50s, he was a prominent person.
How many languages do you speak?
I speak 8 languages.
Really?
Yeah.
Can you tell us what they are?
Yeah, so start with Gujarati. I'm a Gujarati, so Gujarati, Hindi, Tamil, a little bit of Tamil, of course, not very well. But it's amazing how Tamil comes back. The moment I land in Chennai International Airport, immediately Tamil is right. It's waiting to be spoken, It's there. Because when you learn it when you're a kid, it'll never go away. Never.
It's true.
It's amazing. So, of course, it's not a very polished Tamil. I wouldn't be able to read and Bharti Dasan poetry or neither understand it because it's a very ancient language. But yeah, Bengali, because you're hammered here in the ashram with Bengali right since childhood, so you cannot not learn it.
And foreign languages?
Foreign languages,
Of course, Italian.
English, French, Italian, Spanish,
Oh.
a little bit of Portuguese.
Oh.
So, yeah. So I used to work at the reception service with Mota Kaka, and the school life was so much of freedom. And, like just last night before sleeping, I was listening to an interview. Yeah, your interview. Can you imagine? Very often in Rome, you won't believe me, I go to sleep with an interview by you to all the sadhaks. So last night I was listening to, I think Shrikant Bhai. Shrikant Bhai. So, and it was, last night I was listening to Kittuda. So, and he was talking about the incredible amount of freedom and...
Oh, this was on the school?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great talk, isn't it?
Yeah, very interesting talk. When he was transferred from
Yes.
what's his name, our ashram engineer, what's his name, the ashram engineer who constructed all the buildings, all the horrible buildings, that his knowledge is...
Vishwanatha.
Yeah, it's like a hen who thought he was an eagle. No. He was not an architect, so he shouldn't architect a building.
He told me once, I don't like trees, I like buildings.
But yeah, he has done, of course, a lot of service to the ashram, but his architectural skills are not to my taste. And neither the color of the buildings are to my taste. The grey color is such a dull color. I don't know why we have to stick to one color.
Fully agree.
Yeah.
I would like to ask you about your contacts with Mother how you would meet her, and whatever you can share with us. People are just so hungry for this.
Yeah. Well, I grew up with the mother at a distance, of course. I didn't have the privilege that so many others like Jumurdi and Kittuda and Manojda, they really, literally, you also partially grew up with the mother. But I grew up as a child, but I always felt protected by the mother. I was 2 when I came in to the ashram, but I remember distinctly when she gave me my name, Rashmi.
Ah.
Everybody knows me as Dingle here.
Yes,
That's
yes.
my nickname. As you say in Bengali, Daknam. But my passport name was given by the mother, the official name, Rashmi.
Oh.
So when I was 4, I went up with my mom, and I remember I walked into the room, and I was totally marveled by all the beautiful things she had in the room.
Yeah.
And like a kid, full of wonderment, full of
Yeah.
un sens d'émerveillement.
Yeah.
So, well, I was a kid, so I didn't really. But that's the earliest memory of my.
Mother spoke to you?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Ah.
So no, she was supposed to give me the name.
Oh,
so she had seen a
at
photo.
4, huh?
Yeah, at 4. Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. So it was. We call it in Sanskrit the namkaran. When the name is given. But that normally I think takes place at 7. I don't know. I'm not very sure. But yeah, that was the sort of ceremony. So Champaklalji shouts at the mother saying, "Dr. Becharlal's grandson." And she goes like this. But I was, of course, watching the windows. She had this green colored netting, which sort of made a very peaceful light, serene atmosphere. And she had so many beautiful objects. So my attention was caught by all the objects the mother had, and the packets, and the soft carpet. So my mother sort of tried to pull me down and kneel down in front of the mother, and I wouldn't. So then Champaklalji accompanied me and sort of pressed me down to sit quiet instead of fidgeting around. And mother was looking at me, and mother looked into my eyes, and she pronounced Rashmi. She made me pronounce 3 times Rashmi. So I pronounced it, and then I followed my mother, my physical mother. She did pranam to the feet, to the very soft feet of the mother, and I also did the pranam. And I could feel the soft touch of the mother. I was not in tears then, but now I'm in tears. Then I was like a small kid. My attention was totally elsewhere, but deep inside, of course.
But you must have seen her often on your birthday.
Yeah. So many
What
times.
was that like?
But yeah, I was always a kid, I didn't really have a very conscious experience, but I've heard such precious experiences on your interviews that especially some of the Orwellians, their recount of the first encounters with the mother are so touching.
Yes.
Wow. Much more than any of our ashram recounts, they're vibrant. And because, in the ashram we take it for granted. Mother was always around, especially for the blessed children earlier to me. they had so much privilege to be always with. So we take it for granted. But when these people, the French guys or the German guys, they came, also, forget his name now. One of the oldest Aurovilians, what's his name?
Frederick?
Frederick, yeah. When he recounts, also his wife, Shyama, when she recounts.
Yes.
So touching, so touching. Wow. When it's taken for granted, the sense of émerveillement, disappears. So it was very useful to listen to them because it reminded me of my childhood. But yeah, when you're kids, it's different. Yeah, they reached mother when they were like 24, 25. So then the conscious mind is there. So it's a very beautiful experience if you're open inside.
We were at the point where you were talking about Aurovilians who've had experiences. But how many years did you have with Mother?
Well, of course, I had the darshan. The last darshan I had of hers was the balcony darshan that everybody had. So, but the private darshans I had the last one I had was in 72.
Oh.
Because in 73 she was not well and she didn't see anybody. But
when did you see her in 72?
On my birthday, apart from the general darshans.
What is your birthday?
7th of April. So, yeah.
She gave me my name in July of 72.
Oh, you also got your name there.
Yeah, July
Okay.
of 72, yeah.
Okay.
So, you went before her?
Yeah. You asked me about sports.
Yes.
So if you want, I will take it up from there.
Good.
So, well, sports are such an important part of our formal education, because it's not only the mental education, but it's also the vital education, the physical education. So everything is worked upon. So as many other ex-students must have covered the physical education part, we had every day, every single day, a lot of emphasis is given on physical education. So every athletics, gymnastics, swimming, and sport or games.
Oh.
These were the four. But I'm sure many people must have talked to you about all that.
Did you have a good relation with Pranab?
I had a good relationship, though I did not appreciate him on his vision of his relation with foreigners, which I didn't enjoy a lot. Because when my sister, she left the school and followed her dream to become an Aurovilian, he was very much against all those students who left the ashram school and opted for the growth of Auroville, because Dada had a preconceived idea about all that is Aurovillian, and for him Auroville was not a very positive project. So for me, Auroville is a very, very beautiful project, extremely close to my heart, as much as ashram is, really as much, if not even more, because there's such a huge scope for learning and interaction with other forms of. Ashram is very concentrated on its own activities. But I would have wished to talk a little bit more about my work in Europe.
Please
Yeah,
do.
if you
I'd love to hear that.
No, I have a very interesting incident, Narad, because as you know, as I told you, that I always carry Mother and Sri Aurobindo in my heart. So I'm always on the lookout of people who know them, which is very rare that they know.
Oh, is it really?
Very rare. But I never go out of my way to speak about it. I'll never speak about Mother and Sri Aurobindo until they ask me about them. I, being partly a musician, partly an art director, I come in contact with many Indian gurus, like Yogananda, Vivekananda, Raman Maharishi, Sai Baba, and so many, Shivananda, Maharishi.
You came in contact with all of them?
Many of them. So, and in fact, I had a problem to, connect with them. And obviously, in these ashrams, I have to show respect to them. As in our Hindu tradition, we have to respect the elders, we have to touch their feet, But I had this small conflict because I have my own gurus, extremely precious to me, and I don't talk to these new gurus about my gurus. So I had this conflict in how to relate with them. My work is connected with a formal Indian Hindu, like for example, I go to an ashram which is very much Hinduistic, very Hindu-based, rigidly Hindu. But I don't feel connected to that form of Hinduism, very strictly rigid and orthodox. So I talked to this about Champaklalji, who also came to Italy. Champaklalji came to Italy,
yes,
and
Agni told me.
Yeah, who told you?
Agni.
Yeah, exactly. He came to Italy, and I took him to San Francesco, Saint Francis, in Assisi. Not me, of course. There were other people who took him there. So I was also there, and he meditated in where Saint Francis used to meditate. So, and I asked him, Champaklalji also had a very good connection. We had a very good connection with Champaklalji because he was part of our family, being a colleague of my grandfather since decades. So, and he was in that period, that phase of his life where he was observing Monam, where he used to keep quiet. So he didn't talk. But I asked him, I have this conflict with the new world that the Mother reveals to us, and the emphasis she gave on the new world, and my work which is connected with the old world, which is the Indian traditional form of music, dance, which is all connected with Hinduism, no? So I had this conflict of my being a dreamer of the new world and my work which is so constantly in touch with the old world. So Champaklalji said, keep on your work, but be always open to the Mother to keep your passion for the new world. So, of course, he wrote it down to me in Gujarati, which was very scribbled in a fast way, so I couldn't read it. Then I told Kamala Ben, Champaklalji's good friend, who explained to me in Gujarati. So that was the answer Champaklalji gave me when I asked him this question. So that was one interesting moment in my work, ambiance in Italy. But there was another very interesting moment, Narad, when I was in Turkey, can you imagine? And I was in a tiny little village in Turkey, working with the Turkish tradition of music is one of the most sophisticated traditions of music, which very few people know about it. See, the traditions of music which are extremely highly developed are Turkish, Persian, Indian, and the Arab, apart from the Western classical music. But in the West, nobody knows about this tradition. They snob them because it's not of European origin. So it's, it's a Eurocentric mentality which sort of... So what I do is, in my work, I also bring excellent Indian musicians and teachers of Indian music. I have brought also Ustad Vilayat Khan Sahib's senior most student, Pandit Parikh, to the conservatories in Italy, France, Spain, and we talk about Indian music. And the moment I do this, they start admiring Indian classical music, which till 10 years ago, before I started, they didn't know. They all consider Indian music like any tribal music, like folk music, They don't have the idea of how sophisticated, even more sophisticated in the part of rhythm, for example. The Western classical music is so simplistic as far as rhythm is concerned. It's very rudimentary. It's just 3/4 and 4/4. Whereas I was listening to a composition yesterday, I was listening on YouTube in the Calcutta Sri Aurobindo Bhavan, one of the foremost Indian sarod players, Ustad Amzad Ali Khan Sahib, was performing with his two students in the Sri Aurobindo Bhavan on a composition which was based on a rhythmic cycle of 9.5 beats, which Western classical music knows the existence of a rhythm which is of 9.5 beats. They can't even conceive it. Mm-hmm. So this kind of they don't know that Indian structures of scales and rhythms are so sophisticated. I can tell you, I have studied ethnomusicology in my university studies for 2 years, so I have studied many forms of traditional music. There is nothing as sophisticated as Indian classical music is. It's a tonal music, it's totally based on melodic music. Yes. So we don't have harmonies, exactly. But in the melodic music it has such a sophisticated internal structure.
So you were telling me you're now in Turkey.
Turkey, and I happened to perform with a musician who is an Afghan musician who plays the rabab. And he takes me to his house, which is totally in the countryside, and he loves India. He organizes Indian lunch for me so that he can convince me to play with him at the concert through the lunch Indian food, So I said, okay, let's go. So we went with many friends, and he is very much admired there. And then in his house, he's still cooking. I just wander around his house and I saw one photo of Sri Aurobindo in the extreme countryside of Turkey, South Turkey. I see a photo of Sri Aurobindo there. And I keep quiet. I don't tell him anything. And then he says, while we were having lunch, he says, I love your country. I said, wow, have you ever been there? I said, yes. He has learnt Indian music. He loves Indian music. I said, oh, wow, where have you been? Oh, you wouldn't know. India is like a continent. And I said, listen, tell me, I'm curious now. Where have you been? And he says, no, you wouldn't know. It's a small little town in the south of India. South of India? Well, I'm from south. You said you're from north of India. No, but I grew up in the south. So he said, you wouldn't know. It's a tiny little town. I said, tell me, pronounce the name. And he says, it's Pondicherry. Pondicherry, my God. And that was amazing. So I said, wow, I was brought up in Pondicherry. And since 3 generations, my family is connected to Pondicherry. And he says, wow. And he was cooking. He was making curry. Can you imagine? Curry is the Gujarati yogurt-based cuisine. And he left that, and you are from Pondicherry? And he stops cooking, and he takes me to his room, and he says, I never talk about Pondicherry, but I must show you that he was translating Life Divine in Pashto. Oh. Can you imagine, Narad? Oh. He was translating in total solitude, in a country which is Islamic, in a country which is torn by the political, fractions with Syria and Kurdistan, and he quietly works all alone in this solitude, total solitude, and his lifetime endeavor is to translate Life Divine into Pashto. My God, I was totally
Yes.
in total admiration for him and his...
Have you met any in Europe who ever spoke to you of Sri Aurobindo?
Yeah, of course, now more and more. I had the fortune of performing with the father of contemporary European music, whose name is Stockhausen. You know?
Oh, yes.
Karl-Heinz Stockhausen.
Karl-Heinz Stockhausen,
Yeah.
yes, I know.
So Stockhausen is the father of Western contemporary music. And when I was learning Italian art history in Florence, I get a phone call from his son, whose name is Stockhausen, he's a prominent jazz musician now. And Stockhausen was a disciple of Sri Aurobindo.
Oh, yes, I know.
Yeah.
Yes.
So his son rings me up out of the blue, and he wanted some Indian musician in his new composition that he tells me, would you like to come and perform for me? He plays the trumpet. He's a trumpet player. So I said, yes, why not? And he had recently come from the ashram, and he was very impressed by not by my percussions, but he was very impressed by my creativity. And his son, I forget his name, he invented a form of music which is called intuitive music that could interest you a lot, and of course it could interest our Sunilda a lot.
Yes.
Intuitive music. So he involved me into intuitive music, and I did many performances with him, so where intuition takes a big role, and that was very interesting because it was connected with Sri Aurobindo and the mother. So Karl-Heinz Stockhausen, his son, I still don't know.
Now I have a name for you. Jacinto Celsi.
Oh yeah, my
You
God.
talk about him a little bit.
He's also another great...
I'm a disciple of Sri Aurobindo.
I didn't know that.
Oh, he says, everything I've done is because of Sri Aurobindo.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't know this.
Oh, yes.
Ah, okay. No, but I didn't have a contact with him. I didn't know this.
Interesting music.
Yeah, but he's from Italy.
Yes,
He's
he's
from
Italian.
Italy.
He's
Italian,
Italian.
yeah.
A friend of his is transcribing all of his music now. He uses many different instruments.
Yeah. He's also part of the contemporary music giants of Europe, like Luigi Nonno, Stockhausen,
Yes.
John Cage in your country.
John Cage, right?
These were let's say, the forefathers of contemporary music, dodecaphonica, dodecaphonica
Yes.
music. And these are all giants of... So I had the privilege of also listening to a sound check of Karl-Heinz Stockhausen in one of the most prestigious theaters of Rome.
Oh,
And can you imagine, he's like a Hitler at the sound check. Oh my God.
really?
A tiny coughing during the sound check could send you into Siberia for solitary imprisonment.
Wow.
Because he was so strict. So his son, the trumpet player, he allowed me to come and witness a Karl-Heinz Stockhausen sound check in Rome. So that was another occasion. Of course, after the sound check, he used to speak of Sri Aurobindo and how much he was connected. But during the sound check, he could become a Hitler, a dictator.
Wow.
And perfection, that's the extreme perfection that we Indians, we lack a lot, totally. So that was another very good occasion connected with Sri Aurobindo and the mother. Sometimes there is a association connected with Orwell International, for whom I'm going to perform in Berlin this year in May when they have Orwell International meeting. So I'll be there with a Celtic harp player. So there, of course, I feel very much connected with Mother and Sri Aurobindo. So in my heart, I will maybe even pronounce it that this concert is, of course, dedicated to the dream of Auroville. And yeah, Auroville is something extremely precious to me, Narad. I know how you were one of the pioneers of Auroville. So, and I remember you as a kid, especially when I was there also during the. I didn't know you. You were there during the inauguration of Auroville, '68.
Yes.
You were there. Okay.
I was photographing it.
You were photographing
Mother
it.
gave me permission to
Okay,
photograph it.
okay. Yeah, I was there as a kid, but I always like to define my rapport with Auroville as my sister, with whom I grew up.
Yes.
Because Auroville grew up with me and I grew up with Auroville. Of course, I grew up in the ashram, but for me, through my sister, I always felt very closely connected to Auroville. In fact, I've just come from Auroville, and Auroville.
Could you tell me a little bit about your experience of Auroville today?
Yeah, Auroville, despite all the controversies, I somehow dislike a lot of people who go there and put in mother's rings to show I'm connected to the mother and Sri Aurobindo. This is a thought that I was just while I was coming here, I don't like. I meet many Aurovillians who try to get the best of Auroville just putting on a ring, and showing that they're connected. But the moment they leave, and if I meet them outside Auroville, they don't have that ring. So, these kind of people, I'd really sort of keep away from them. But I love to be with Aurovillians who are closely connected to Mother and Sri Aurobindo, and I get to know them thanks to your videos. And such Aurovillians are, to me, extremely precious because I see my future in Auroville. And I hope there are more and more such people who sort of. I listen to a lot Dipti's. You should interview her a lot. I really like how deeply connected she is to the unending education.
I would love to.
Yeah. That's so interesting. I find it so, and I feel connected a lot to what Dipti is doing. So, the people, I like to connect myself with Aurovillians who are closely connected to our mother and Sri Aurobindo. The other Aurovillians, of course, I've learned, Tapas has trained me not to judge other people because everyone has his own way to. That's what she used to tell me during the difficult times that Auroville went through, that not to judge them. He will come back sooner or later to Mother and Sri Aurobindo in his own way. So, not to judge. So I have stopped judging those Aurovillians who are there just like that because I know many of them and I try to keep away from them so that I don't express myself. But I'm very, very concerned about Auroville's future because people like you, Aster, and the older ones, they have still a connection with Mother and Sri Aurobindo. The youngsters, they are so straightforward in telling them, expressing themselves, that their viewpoints are their viewpoints, which not necessarily are connected to Mother and Sri Aurobindo. But that is something very difficult for me to, envisage and accept, because for me Auroville is intrinsically Mother and Sri Aurobindo, So maybe they have their own viewpoint. The younger Aurovillians, who grew up without the presence of Mother and Sri Aurobindo, that is a little. It provokes me a tiny amount of concern because it's such a beautiful creation, Auroville. Amazing, really. And the incredible amount of scope for learning, unending education. I remember having heard an interview to that American lady with short hair. You've made 2 or 3 interviews with her, and she talks about, what's her name? I forget. Is it American?
Amy.
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 Yeah, Amy.
Good.
Amazing. She says, and which is so true, what a concentrated place of culture. I mean, in such a tiny ambiance, if you see surface-wise, nowhere in the world you have such a huge quantity of courses, cultural, artistic, ecological, scientific, in any realms of life. It's amazing. So, I mean, Auroville really has a huge potential, but I really hope people like Karan Singh and all these elderly people, they protect it and give it to the next generation in a motherwards and motherful.
I feel that our Prime Minister has helped a lot.
Oh, yeah. My God.
And his talk on Sri Aurobindo was brilliant.
Amazing. Yeah, very inspired.
Very inspired.
Very inspired. Yeah.
Where do you go from here? What is your next venture in life?
My next venture in life, I'm producing a CD in Rome. So on the 19th, I have to be in the recording studio in Rome, where I'm producing musicians from Spain and Italy. So I have to finish that CD, and the 29th of February, the CD is coming out in an international conference in Milan. So that's my next endeavor. But that's more my administrative side of my work. But my cultural thing, I'm performing in Morocco with this harp player from the Alps, Italian Alps, a Celtic harp player with a Moroccan, very inspired Moroccan musician who is a teacher of Arab music in the Conservatory of Casablanca in Morocco. So we'll be performing in end of March with them, so looking forward to that.
Do you ever see yourself coming to Auroville?
Yeah.
Really?
Very much. I'm very, very attracted to Auroville. Of course, ashram remains to me a huge source of inspiration, because since 1928, our family has connection with ashram. So ashram is unforgettable. But Auroville is really like something, a new horizon, between the gold and the blue.
Would you stay here in Auroville?
Oh yeah.
You would?
Very much. I would very much like to
see
be.
that possibility.
Yeah, to be in the project of unending education with Dipti and Tapas and Joy, all these.
Wonderful.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
So, I think we've covered pretty much your life.
Yeah.
When would you think of coming back here?
I don't know.
Any timetable at all?
Yeah. I always say it's around the corner, but it's inside my heart more than around the corner.
I think you would teach music.
I would teach, teach is a big word, but yeah, I would like to be also, like teaching. I am doing classes of history of Italian art in the school, in the ashram school. So I'm touching, next week before I leave, I have a class on the transition from Byzantine art to Renaissance art. Because I have done my university studies in Florence on Italian art history. So that's another passion that I have. So I'm taking a class on Byzantine art to the Renaissance art.
At Knowledge?
No, at the Hall of Harmony.
Hall of Harmony.
Yeah. So that's another passion. This is another fantastic thing, that we are so full of passions. My life is everything about passion. I've never foreseen myself as a career oriented like many of my ex-students who are, advocates, diamond merchant, scientist, these are very hierarchical career. My life is totally experience-based life, and it's all about passions of, I love archaeology, I love astrophysics, I love music, I love art history. Archaeology is so much fun. In Italy, it's all about archaeology. Anywhere you go, it's archaeological. So, all over. But all this is thanks to our ashram education. Amazing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Narad. Thank you.
It's been a wonderful time.